Do you ever start eating and you just feel like you can't stop? There's a real reason this happens, and it's not to do with willpower, and it's not because you lack discipline. And in this video, I'm going to share with you why this happens and how we can feel in control so we can start eating and stop before we get to that point of feeling so uncomfortably full and disgusted with ourselves. I've been there. You can stop. I did this for 20 years, and it's now been around 7 or 8 years since I have overeaten, and I used to have a binge eating disorder, and now I'm free for both, and I know how you can get there too. So watch this video if you want support with this. So one of the main reasons this happens is because there's a mind to body disconnect. And what I mean by that is if you are someone that has had food issues for a long time, like I used to, and in the attempt to control your food issues, you may have tried dieting, different health plans, and followed what other people are telling you to eat. And in this process, then you've not connected to what your body is telling you. So we have hormones that tell us when it's time to eat. Ghrelin is the hormone that tells us, hey, you're hungry, it's time to eat. Leptin is the hormone that tells us you've now eaten enough and it's time to stop eating. And what happens when we have been dieting and restricting? In that restriction causes deprivation, and in the deprivation we often then, when we start eating, we feel like we can't stop. We are disconnecting from our natural body signals that are telling us when it's time to eat and when it's time to stop. And so to help yourself get back in touch with these signals, I suggest mindful eating. Mindful eating simply means that when you're eating, you are mindful on what you're doing and you're not distracted by anything else. That's all it means. So if you notice that you overeat when you're watching TV or eating with friends or family and you're not focused on the process of eating, you're doing something else at the same time, like talking, watching, scrolling on your phone, then mindful eating means removing all of those distractions for one meal a day to begin with, so you can connect to your body. Your mind and your body can connect so that you can eat mindfully and you can start to pick up on your natural body signals that are telling you when you're starting to feel full. Because your body is very smart, and if you start to tune into it again, you will be able to connect to these signals. And mindful eating is the simplest way that you can just start that today. If you can't do it with a meal, do it with a snack, but just remove yourself from distraction and allow yourself to take some deep breaths before you start eating. Maybe pause midway through eating. You can place your hand on your tummy and try and practice this mind-body connection, and this will help you be able to stop eating before you get to that place of being uncomfortably full. I've already briefly mentioned this, but another reason that we feel like when we finally get that food in front of us that we love, we feel like we don't have control and we can't stop, is because of this binge restrict cycle that you might be in, that a lot of my clients have been in, and that I was in for 20 years. And like I said, because I started to use food to comfort myself and as a means of control, I then developed too much control, and it created this deprivation that caused to binge. And this is so common, it's very normal. It doesn't mean anything bad about us. It just means that we've been using food as a coping strategy, and it's time to overcome that. So one way to stop yourself from feeling like you're out of control with food is to no longer call foods forbidden, or call foods bad, or call foods treats, or whatever language you use that is creating more of either a deprivation or a desire for the foods. When we label foods in these ways, we don't realize that we're actually creating more of a problem for ourselves. We want to develop a mindset where we think of all foods as neutral. Now, obviously, there are foods that have more nutrients in them than others, and there are foods that are better for our body than others, but that doesn't mean we have to label them good or bad, or treats, or sins, or anything like that. Don't even get me started on the sins. The language that are used in Slimming World and Weight Watchers makes me so sad, and it keeps people just locked in it, and that's a whole other video in itself that I might share. But anyway, I've worked with lots of people that have been part of those slimming groups for years, and they are still overweight and cannot control themselves with food. So I do not believe that those things work. Anyway, so what you can do to help yourself with this is to start to develop the mentality that all foods are available to you, which they are. They are all available to you, and you get to choose in every moment what you want. And when you start to develop this abundant mindset of all foods are available to me, you'll notice that you'll stop craving the foods that you're trying to not allow yourself to have. When you give yourself permission to have all the foods, you will develop this free mindset of actually checking in and thinking, what is I really want right now? Because if I'm allowed the cake, or if I'm allowed the pizza, is that what I really want today? Or is there something else that would nourish my body or give me more energy or make me feel more vibrant instead? So like I said, it's not a quick fix, but when you develop this mindset, instead of being in this restrictive mindset to freedom mindset, then you will stop feeling out of control with foods. And this is what I do in my 90 days to food freedom with my clients, is that within the 90 days, they change the way they think about food so they can change the way they act around food and behave, and their habits change. So that's another step, removing this binge and restrict mentality. So now let's talk about our emotional well-being, because often overeating or feeling like out of control with food is because we're using food as a way to comfort ourselves or to numb how we're feeling. Maybe we don't want to feel stress, and so we're using food in that way to not feel that stress anymore, or that boredom or loneliness, or whatever negative emotion is we're trying to stuff down by filling ourselves with food, because while we're eating, it's comforting. So working on our emotional well-being. If you are feeling lonely, how can you create more connection in your life? If you're feeling stressed, how can you create more ease and calm? If you're feeling bored, how can you create more fun or adventure in your life, or start a new hobby? Like I said, it's not as simple as just changing the way we react with food. We have to look at ourselves as a whole and see why we're using food in this way, and how we can start to support ourselves so we don't use food as a coping strategy anymore. And then how to break this pattern of overeating. So the first step is do not skip meals. I do not think that intermittent fasting is a good idea for people like us that have issues with our eating, whether you've had disordered eating in the past or whether you just feel like you don't have control and you compulsively eat. I don't think intermittent fasting is a great idea past 12 hours. So if you're considering intermittent fasting, I think, doing it 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. great, just giving your body time to digest, but I don't think any more than that, because you don't want to let yourself get too hungry. Eating regular meals that are balanced with protein, carbohydrates, lots of fiber, giving yourself good quantity of food at a meal time so you're full enough and satiated and you're not still thinking I need more to satisfy me. So balancing this, not skipping meals, not letting your brain get into this food scarcity mindset. I think also, like I said, pausing halfway through a meal, if you can push your plate away from you or put your cutlery down, take a sip of water and be mindful. And that's why I said mindful eating is so great in this practice, because it takes 20 to 30 minutes for us to feel full once we start eating. So being able to pause midway through and mindfully do that is going to help you so much. I think also if we can reflect when we overeat and be very curious and compassionate with ourselves instead of judging ourselves, which I know is easier said than done, but we wouldn't judge our friends for it. We would be curious as to why it's happening. And so be curious with yourself. What has gone on today that's making me want to use food in this way? How can I support myself better next time? What can I do tomorrow to support myself? Asking yourself these questions from a place of curiosity and compassion without judgment. So you remove that guilt and shame, because when we're feeling guilt and shame, guess what? We're more likely to use food to comfort ourselves and to overeat, and we don't want to do that anymore. That's all of the things I have to say today. I hope this is helpful. I hope that you take this away and you can stop feeling that out of control compulsion to just eat so much until you're so uncomfortably full. If you would like to book a free 20-minute call with me to explore this further, I will leave my booking link below, and I would love to support you. Like I said, I have a program. It's a one-to-one, very personalized program, but following the method that works for me, that works for my clients at the same time. It's called 90 Days to Food Freedom, and if you're curious, let's just have a chat, see if it's right for you, see if I am the right person to support you. Okay, let's talk soon. Bye-bye.